Welcome to Backyard Bows. Hey, welcome to Backyard Bows. Man, what a year. So we started off with the V3X. That was the first bow review we did in January, and here we are 1 year later with the Phase 4. And if you've been following my Instagram account, you would have known that I kind of had an opinion about this bow. And I kind of mentioned it in the V3X review, just that I am a maybe once every 2 or 3 years guy with Mathews, Hoyt, even PSE. I mean, they have to make some substantial changes for me to go and drop that kind of money again. And that kind of money, when you talk about all the accessories that are made to Mathews, this new stabilizer, the Ultra Rest, he has an Ultra View sight on here, my buddy who let me borrow this because I wasn't going to purchase one. But if you buy the sight that was made for this, you're looking around $2,200 to $2,500 after taxes. That's a lot of money. And to be honest, this is virtually the same bow. You have 8 limbs instead of 4 limbs. That's 4 extra limbs, which adds 8 extra bolts. So to me, my first instinct was, man, that's just a lot of room for error. A lot of room for things to come loose. Sometimes it's hard to get 4 limbs tuned. Now you have 8 limbs. I was skeptical about the whole system, but what they're claiming is that this new resistance phase dampening, which is like a rubber liner almost that goes right in between each pair of limbs, that is going to almost virtually eliminate sound and vibration. And I'm going to go ahead and say and I'm only going to say this because I am a diehard Mathews fan. I love the company. I love their bows. I have an unbelievable Mathews collection that I will never part with. So with this being said, maybe I'm a little harder on Mathews, but I feel like I can be because if you knew my inner positioning on them, it's that I love Mathews. But even if this is the quietest, most dead in hand bow, I probably still wouldn't buy it. To me, there's no need. I love the V3X 29 that I have in granite from earlier this year. To me, it's almost a perfect bow. It's like the pinnacle of the last 3 or 4 years for Mathews is that V3X. To me, this is just excessive. And God, where does that come into play? I feel like Mathews, it's really, really hard to get to the top of any company, to kind of be the best. I feel like it's 10 times harder to remain on top and to remain the best. And especially now, where we have so many different bow companies, not just an unbelievable new number of bow companies out there and manufacturers, but they're putting out some great quality stuff. So when you're on top, you have to feel that a little bit. And I think that's where they, constantly are wanting to put out a new bow, new technology, new things, so you have this new, this, what they call new technology. It's the first of its kind. And I think that's like that selling point that, and obviously every company wants to keep on that marketing wheel. They want you to repurchase, rebuy, repurchase. And I've kind of grown skeptical of it. And I don't have the urge to go out and buy a new bow from each company every year or even review them. Now this bow, I told myself I wasn't going to buy the Phase 4. This is a good buddies of mine. He told me if I mounted the quiver on and did his sight tape on his Ultra View, he'd let me do the review. I said, of course I would. So here we go. We got, and I love this. I did the 29 in the V3X. This is the 33. So, there's a couple changes that the bow has, that they made in the bow. And then obviously we're going to do a little bit different axle to axle link. So we're kind of getting a review on everything. So 33 inches axle to axle, 6.5 inch brace height. I think 4.6 pounds. You got 60, 65, 70, 75 pound draw weight options. This bow with the switch weight technology that's in those cams, which I love. It goes from 27 out to 31.5 inch increments, and then you can get each of those draw weight settings on, in those switch weight mods. So, and that's something that's really cool too. So we'll just start with that. You got the switch weight mods. I have not always loved the feel of these really, really large cams. I feel like they dump on you a little bit in the end. It's always, you feel like you're pulling a little bit less weight. It's a fairly smooth draw, and then it kind of dumps at the end. And I think that has to do with just these huge cams that roll over and kind of knock at the end. But, each draw length, you can get each draw weight. And that's Mathews. They're the only people that do that. Switch weight technology will put put a little graph up on the screen. So if you resell the bow, all they would have to do is repurchase to their draw length and draw weight, and a huge variety of hunters can buy the same bow. Little bit of differences in the bridge. In the riser, a little bit of different bridges, but virtually the same riser. I think they've accommodated for these new accessories that they've come up with, the kind of bridge lock sight, the bridge lock stabilizer, which is new. So those are all mounted into the riser. And I feel like the stabilizer is the completion of what they started last year with the sight and the rest, maybe a couple years ago, is kind of inlining all of the accessories on the bow. So now you have the sight that mounts into the middle, you have the rest that mounts on the back, and now you have this really cool stabilizer, which I'll admit, this thing is awesome. You undo this little, this piece that mounts onto the side right here. You just undo it, you can slide your stabilizer out different lengths. You can actually buy extra weights for the front, so that every hunter can get that perfect feel for their own bow. And I love that. So actually I'm gonna kind of leave it out almost fully extended, and we'll tighten it down for that single shot assessment. But I do love that. If you come up here to the limb pockets, where these new 4 limbs meet these limb pockets, Mathews is some of my favorite limb pockets. I feel like the more bows I've seen, the bigger, the bulkier that they've gotten. These are just really nice, sleek, light. I love the limb pockets. So, and then you have these now, like I just mentioned, 4 limbs on top, 4 limbs on bottom, with a rubber lining in between each set of limbs. And that's supposed to, and the science behind it makes sense. The kind of engineering, that's the cams, and the front of those limbs are gonna take the most of that absorption that we're gonna get from that shot cycle. That little rubber lining is gonna take most of that away, or that's what they're advertising. And I think it probably is, but again, is it worth it to me for a whole new bow? I'm not 100% sure, but right off the bat, maybe prematurely, I'm just gonna say no. But go ahead, let's go ahead and shoot this. We'll shoot this a bunch. It's about 7 degrees outside today. So we'll get outside, we'll shoot it as much as I am capable of, and then we will come back in, we'll shoot it through the chronograph, and we'll give it that final grade. So something else that I love about Mathews, probably some of my favorite just of all times, are the quivers. From the first bows, the Z7 I had where they kind of clamped in, to these new ones, man, these are just some of the best quivers that you can get. So this is the one piece that comes off, and then they have the 2 piece that's stationary. But I love Mathews quivers, one of my favorite parts about the bows. So I think as I've shot more over time, the grip has stood out to me more and more and more the more bows that I pick up. I like the thickness of Mathews grips, but it's a little bit too vertical for my wrist. I kind of like it a little bit more slanted, and I like it a little bit more molded to my hand. But this, the grips on these are just not my favorite. And again, that's just preference. We'll do a couple shots inside before we go outside. Again, you got a nice smooth draw, and then it just kind of dumps at the end. Before I mention the vibration, so I do think, just like the V3X, for some reason these want to lean a little bit on me, and it's the same lean. I'm kind of countering just a little bit to level out my sight, but they just want to lean a little bit. And I understand everything on this bow. It's inlined. It's supposed to be the perfect, balanced bow, but for some reason they just have a slight lean to them, and I always got to counter it before I shoot. But I'm gonna shoot one more. I'll tell you what, and I wasn't necessarily knocking it. I just didn't know if it was necessary. I feel like this was a lot, this is, to my mind, this was extra. A lot of extra going on, but man, it is very, very smooth shot cycle. Almost, as little vibration as you can possibly get. That is advertised correctly. That's an incredible, super clean. Almost nothing in your hand. You can barely feel the arrow coming off of the bow at all. So that is really clean. I do like that. Little bit of, counterbalancing. The weight of this bow, the 33 compared to the 29, it has a little bit more on top, so the follow through is a little bit more natural. I mean, it's nice. I still think I would prefer, if I went with the Phase 4 of my own, I'd probably go with the 29. These, you know, you get these horizontal limbs, they create a really long riser. So the riser's almost the exact same height as the axle to axle. I mean, that is a lot of bow. But man, it feels good. Let's shoot one more and then we're gonna go outside and get after our freestyle shoot. I gotta take a second. We'll sight in his sight and then we'll get after it. I mean, yeah, it's probably one of the cleaner shot cycles I've seen yet. So give us a second and we'll sling a whole bunch. All right, so on to the freestyle shoot. It is blistering cold out here and we will shoot as much as we can. We'll start up here. We got the boar at 30, the bucks at 35, then we'll go over to the gazebo, shoot some longer range shots all the way up to 50. So the reason in the beginning why I said I was unsure about this new technology with the 8 limbs is my first thought is Mathews going to keep this around for the upcoming bows? Did they feel like they've created a technology that is timeless and that every other company should adopt and this is the new thing? I don't think so. I think we will see this Phase 4 technology phased out. Maybe one more bow and then they'll go back to 4 limbs. And that's it's like they just came up with something new and creative to kind of, as a marketing scheme. Now, I will say this bow is dead in the hand, vibration free, and it's super quiet, but will they continue with this 8-limb technology? Honestly, I don't believe so. And we'll circle back to it when they come out with their new bows in the future, but we'll shoot a whole bunch as much as we can. It is freezing. It's probably what, 10 degrees? So again, we'll shoot some, we'll warm up, we'll shoot some more, we'll warm up. All right, so now we'll go to the bucks, which are at each one of these I pull out, got a big old ice chunk on them. We'll go to the bucks, which are at 35. Then we'll take a break, let that camera warm back up, and then we'll come back out again. So you got, it's windy, it's cold, but isn't that most of the conditions you find yourself in, especially in late season? You know, I've harvested so many animals in this exact weather, so bow's gonna perform, it needs to perform in the harshest of conditions. And this thing is extremely quiet, weirdly quiet. You can barely hear and feel the arrows coming off of this. So again, I think the technology, it works. Will we see it forever? I don't know. Let's go to the last buck and then we'll jump over and get some longer shots. Let's do one more on that buck. Even in the field, usually my release hand, I don't wear a glove. I'll keep it warm in my pocket, but I usually don't ever wear a glove on this hand. But I can barely feel my hands right now. All right, let's go over to the gazebo and we'll shoot some longer range shots. All right, so from over here, we have most of our 3D targets. We got coyote, buck, gray wolf, big black bear. We got a little black bear we'll do the full draw stall on. We got a boar, both bucks quartering different angles from over here, and then the elk up there at 50. So we'll start right here with the coyote at 25. All right, we're just gonna work our way up this ladder, and this is kind of what we'll do all day. You know, we shoot as much as we can. I know you've heard me say it, but it's hard to, you know, really give an honest assessment of a bow or anything until it's used in the field. You know, or at very least, shot as much as you can on, you know, in this way. I think that's really important just for an honest assessment. So now we'll kind of work our way up and we'll just go right up the ladder at 5-yard increments. We'll go to the buck. I'll tell you what, I would say this has a little bit better hold than the V3X29. So that longer axle to axle, that bigger frame on that riser, This thing holds a little bit better. I would still probably go with the 29 just because I like a little bit more compact bow, but I would say this is a little bit more sturdy at full draw. It sets up really nice. I mean, the back wall on this is nice. You know, it wants to jump a hair, but I like the tenseness that you have to hold at. I kind of like a little bit of, you know, tenseness. I don't like, I'm usually not a fan of maybe 90% let off. You know, I'm more of an 80, 85. But this feels really good at full draw. Let's go to the Gray Wolf. So I don't think, we're gonna keep going up. So we got, now we'll be at the Black Bear. I don't think I've ever, man, it's hard to say this because I know it probably sounds like I'm, you know, paid to say this, but I'm being honest. See, I don't think I've ever felt a bow where you don't feel an arrow come off of it at all. I mean, this shot cycle is unbelievably smooth. It's so clean. You can't feel it, you can barely hear it. It's honestly impressive. I can barely talk right now, my jaw is frozen. But I think that's the best part about this bow is, you know, and they're saying it's the limbs. They're saying that it's the kind of padding in between the limbs. And again, it all makes sense. It seems like there's a lot of room for air. I would have to really put this to the test and tune it perfectly and then just shoot it an absolute ton and see if there's any bit of movement in the limbs, see if it comes untuned. That would be my only concern, but that's something I would have to play around with before I gave a definitive answer on that. But let's go Black Bear. I mean, it sounds like a Mathews. It's just a little quieter than some of the ones before. Let's try to get one a little lower. Man, these come off here real nice. The draw cycle, I said it on the V3X. The huge cams on these, they're not my favorite for the draw cycle. You have a little dump at the end. You know, they're a little stiff. You know, and somebody who's like a really pro Mathews guy, he'll tell you different all day. But the more bows you shoot from different companies, the more other things stand out to you. And that's something, you know, these don't have that smooth of a draw cycle, but it's holding really, really nice. I do like that longer axle to axle. And I feel like one of the cleanest shot cycles that we have had in here to date. So let's do let's sling a couple last arrows up at that elk, and then we'll go inside and run it through that chronograph. So now we'll do our stability test. We call it the full draw stall. Hold for a minute. We'll place your shot on that little Black Bear. Okay, up to the elk at 50. It's been so cold today, I've had to take a lot of breaks, which has given me a lot of time to think. So let me shoot one and then we'll kind of discuss what's been on my mind. So 33 inches axle to axle. Riser is the exact same height almost. So with a horizontal limb bow, personally, this is just complete preference, I'm 100% the shorter of the axles to axles. I think when they did the V3 at 27, that was a little bit too short for me. But I'd much rather be shooting the 29 than the this is a lot of bow. And if you look where the grip's placed, there is an absolute ton of riser and bow above your hand. I love the primes and how they kind of centered that grip, and there's more to the bow underneath the rest in your grip. And again, that's just personal preference. This is a lot of bow. And then my other thought is, like, you see a lot of professional shooters that shoot you know, the really long axle to axles, really long risers, and they have these huge stabilizers coming off the front, back. And and I'm sure you've had the same thought as I have over time. It's like, do I need that? Is that something that I need to be doing? Is that, you know, something I need to add to my bow? You know, because we base, you know, you got all these unbelievable shooters and you don't even have to name them. And you kind of want to mimic what they're doing. And like, obviously you want to use the same equipment in your mind. That's what you're thinking. But to me, my thought is they shoot the majority of the year when they're competing, you know, with these really long stabilizers, really nice long big bows. And then when they get to their hunting season, which is a shorter part of the year, that's what they feel comfortable with. So that's kind of what they carry into their season. You know, do they necessarily need that in the field? I don't think so. I hate, you know, this is like a perfect distance stabilizer. I really never use a back bar, anything coming off the back. I also don't shoot with my quiver on. So I usually don't go any longer than this. But again, that's, you know, whatever the bow, however the bow feels to you, whatever you're consistent and comfortable with, and whatever you're practicing with and kind of get real comfortable, you know, use it. You know, if you want to try and experiment in different things and longer stabilizers and back, you can do it. And then again, you'll find something that feels the best to you. But the longer axle to axle on these Mathews with the horizontal limbs with as much risers, this has, I'd go with the 29, 10 out of 10. Let's shoot another one up there. I can barely feel my hands. I'm gonna shoot as much as I can. Obviously, it's real cold, but I'll give this bow the fairest shake I can. These Mathews, I can shoot all day. Prefer the 29 over the 33, but again, they're a breeze to shoot. They're comfortable. You know, there's just something I feel like you can just get out and shoot all day with. So besides the weather, we'll shoot as much as we can. All right, we're gonna have a little fun with the speed test. So today we'll do our 500 grain arrow that we do all the testing with that'll go into the grading. We'll do that little bit lighter arrow, which probably mimics the majority, you know, of hunting arrows at 440 grains. And then the arrows that came with this bow from my buddy, these are his arrows that he hunts with, and they're about 600 grains. So we have 3 different arrows, 3 different weights, and we'll be able to kind of have some fun and see what each gets. So we'll start off with that arrow that we do the grading with, 300 spine, full metal jacket, 500 grains. We got 70 pounds, which is more like 28 or 68.7. 30 inches, 85% let off. So that's 278. That's right there where the V3X was. Let's do a couple, and the way we're doing the new grading system, it's 272. Is we have maybe a 10 pound-feet per second fluctuation, and that'll get you a point. So if it remains right in here in the 270s, anywhere from 270 to 279, you get 7 out of 10. Anything over 300 and over, it gets the full 10 out of 10. That's 273. Nice. So 7 out of 10 for the speed. Let's go ahead and we'll shoot a couple with the lighter arrow, and then we'll shoot a couple with that heavier arrow. So this is a 400 spine full metal jacket, about 440 grains. That's 290. Man, so that actually, you know, that's a nice little jump. You know, you got low 270s, you drop that arrow weight just a little bit, you know, 60 grains, and you got a really fast arrow there. That's a duplicate 290. That's awesome. So now, and again, my buddy who lent me this bow, he hunts a huge variety of larger game. He hunts with a 600 grain arrow, and that's kind of his weight of choice. And he hunts all over. So this is his setup, just like this. 600 grain arrow. Let's see what he's getting. 247. Again, I've watched a lot of his kill shots. Never thought twice about the speed of his bow, the weight of his arrow. 246. So a big variety of feet per second there with a whole bunch of different weighted arrows. I love kind of messing around with that, seeing what other people hunt with, what they have success with. Give me a second. I'm going to sit down, put some good thought into this, and we'll give it a grade. First, and you'll see the next time I show that grading chart, you'll see that I kind of like scratched it out in 2 different categories and wrote something new. I really put some thought into this. I didn't, I kind of sat down and thought of everything I could. So, and I said it from the beginning, our grading system is just going to be a little bit more stricter across the board. After doing a whole year of bows, I saw some flaws in my own grading system. I want to create some separation. I want to give you guys the best reviews I can that are the most honest reviews. So keep that in mind. Sorry. First, 274, 273, 272. 7 out of 10 for the grading. Anywhere, 10-pound fluctuation, 270, 279, 280, 289. That gets your score 7 out of 10. 300 and above, 10 out of 10. Quality, durability. I gave the V3X an 8. I gave this a 7. 2 reasons. Mainly, you add so many extra parts, and people are like, it's not so many. Well, it is. It's 4 extra limbs, as well as 8 extra screws. I can't tell you how many times with all these bows that I have been shooting and you hear something vibrate, you hear something rattle, and things come loose. They just do. Now, I always advise you check your bows before you step into the field, but I mean, anything man-made is meant to fail. You start adding more and more and more what we're calling new technology onto these bows, the more complicated the systems get, the more room for error, period. And we talk about the tunability, and then also if it stays tuned, which is we don't talk about as much. So whether you put 500 arrows through the bow, is it going to stay tuned after that 500 arrow? I think the more technology, the more complicated the system is, the more room for error. You got 7 different strings on this. You now have 8 different limbs. It's just 7 out of 10. 9 out of 10 for appeal. I love Mathews bows. They're my favorite style of bows. The best look to them. I love how everything matches. I mean, they just take so much detail and time into these bows. I love it. So 9 out of 10 there. So technology. I went back and forth on this one too. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I love the inlining of all the accessories. I love it. Bridge lock, man, that's like one of my new favorite things. I love it. I love the stabilizer. It's so solid, sleek. I love the way it tucks away. I love that you can mount everything on the inside or behind the riser, and I love the idea of that, and I love the way it looks too. So, and then also you have this new technology, which are these 4 limbs with the liner in the middle. It is true. It is a very, very clean bow. The shot cycle is so clean. You can barely feel the arrows coming off of it. It's almost vibrationless, soundless. I love that. I don't put too much emphasis in that, but I do love that. I don't know if this technology is going to stick around. That was my big thing earlier. It's like, man, are we just going to see 8 limbs on every Mathews bow from here on? I don't think so. We can circle back to that, but I bet you this is maybe a 1 or 2 bow thing, and then they're just going to phase it out. No pun intended. But it was advertised correctly. Silent, quiet, dead in hand. It really is. And because virtually they're the same bows as the V3X, I'm going to say that the technology is working. So 9 out of 10 there. That's factoring in the bridge lock stuff too. Love it. Performance, I gave it an 8 out of 10. And it's 1 less than the V3X. And again, V3X was the first bow we did. A lot of perspective since then. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. These bows, for some reason, want to torque on me. And now after thinking about it for a while, I think you see all of these pro staffers that shoot these Mathews, they have extremely long stabilizers going off the front, the back. Even when they don't shoot with the quiver on, they have everything on there you can imagine to make this thing stable. I mean, that makes sense, and that's across the board. All of them use, 30-inch stabilizers, front, back. Clearly trying to get a bow that's not as stable as they would like stable. I want to throw a little bit of stabilizer on my bow, and I want it, as stable as you can get it. I want it rock solid. I mean, the RX-7 from Hoyt didn't even have to put a stabilizer on it. I just used that shortstop stabilizer that was built into it. Absolutely rock solid. That's what I want to see. So 8 out of 10 for there. 40, 40 we're gonna multiply before we add the bonus points for the price. So you got 80 out of 100. It does get 2 extra bonus points, so it gets an 82 out of 100. I know Mathews guys are a little bit more sensitive than other hunters. For some reason, they just are a little bit more sensitive. So if you don't like that score, I don't know what to tell you. I put a lot of thought into it. I'm not just flippantly doing these reviews. And then you're gonna be like, well, why'd the V3X get a 94 and this got an 82? Again, perspective. You grow, you see more, see different bows, you get more stuff in your hands, and you just realize, and I think this is a good lesson for you, the viewers, just because your uncle or brother or dad shoots Mathews, that doesn't mean it's necessarily for you. Go out there and get in your hands a whole bunch of different bows, and I promise you something will stand out. It might be Mathews bows. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying the more you shoot, the more you'll realize, and you'll be able to kind of have perspective. And that's kind of what's factored into my grading. So make sure you follow us on YouTube if you found anything in this review that was helpful in your bow buying process. We have tons of bows up. Check them out. Make sure you follow us on Instagram for what's to come. Above all, make sure you get your reps in on the daily. We will see you next Saturday.